I'm Beth with Remarkably Domestic, and today I'd like to show you how to make a beaded friendship bracelet. So I've chosen 2 greens and 2 purples, and you want to measure out your thread to 2 yards. And I have all my other threads here. I've got a dark purple and a light purple, and you'll see this up close in a moment, and a light green and a dark green. And once you have them all together, fold them over in half, like that, and then we're going to tie a knot at the top here. But first what we need to do is you'll need to take your button that you're going to use for your clasp, and you want to make sure that the hole is big enough for your button to fit through, but not so big that your button will slip out. So we're going to tie a knot here by wrapping around and tying it just loosely so we can measure whether or not our button will fit through. If it fits through really easily, it's probably going to be too loose. So you want to tighten it up a little bit. And since the threads are cotton, they will stretch a little if you have to push through. So you want to have it just tight enough. So then, what you're going to do is start your braiding. So you need to take a piece of tape or something to attach your threads to the table so that it becomes easy to work with. And you're going to separate your braids out into, or your strings out into certain colors. So you have purples and then greens. And we're going to start braiding our bracelet first, and then once we've gotten some of it braided, then we'll add the beads on, since it's a little bit harder to braid when you have the beads on. So making the bracelet is actually really easy. It's just a series of knots that you're going to tie with these strings. So your working string is always going to be the string that's on the left, and you're going to use that string to go across all the other strings. So what you're going to tie is what's called a forward knot. So this is my working string, my next string. So what you do is you make a little 4. You can see how this, when you cross it over like this, it makes a little number 4. And just pull the thread under through, and then hold the string you're folding over tight and use your working string to slide it up to the top. And you do that twice for every string. That's called a forward knot. Okay, so then once you've done it on the first string, you can move that out of the way. Then you take your next string, still the same working string, make a number 4, bring it under and through, hold the string tight while you move your working string up, and do it again. Hold the string tight while you move your string up. And there's that one. Now we'll do this one. Make a 4, under, up, 4, under, hold tight, put up. Last one, make your 4, slide up, 4, slide up. So now what I like to do after each row has been completed, I like to kind of pull it down. Now at the very beginning, it's a little funky because you're just starting. But now you can start again on the left and work the next string. So this is the second dark purple, and I'm going to work it all the way across. So you'll have sort of 2 rows of dark purple that'll make one stripe. So you work it in the 4, up, and a second 4, up, and there. So now we've got both those dark purples over on the right. They've both been worked. Pull it a little bit tight, and you can see that we're kind of starting to get the beginnings of a bracelet. So I'm going to work the rest of these strings across. Okay, so now you can see that I've gone through and I've done one cycle of the colors. So I've got dark purple, light purple, dark green, light green, and I've gone back and done the first dark purple again. And the reason I've done that is because the pattern that I'm going to do for the beads is I'm going to put beads in between the dark and light purples and then in between the dark and light greens. And I've chosen for that some purple and some green beads. I recommend that you use seed beads and that you use a size 11. So the way I'm going to do that pattern is I'm going to put 4 seed beads in the middle of the bracelet. And in between the purples, we're going to have purple. That means that these center strings are going to get the purple beads. And in between the greens, we're going to want greens. That means that the purple strings, which will be in the middle when we're in between the greens, will get the green beads. So the way that you put your beads on is a little tricky as well. You need to have a beading needle, which you can get at any kind of bead store. You can order them online. And a beading needle is like this. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but it's super, super skinny. Almost like I lose them all the time because you can almost not see them. And it has a big eye on the end that will collapse. So it allows you to put a bigger thread through, but then it'll smush down when it has to go through the eye of the bead. So I'm going to start with the first purple one, and what I recommend is just putting all your beads on at once, because the seed beads will be kind of tight on the strings. They'll kind of just hang around, they won't slide off, and you can do your knots throughout. It's much easier than trying to put the beading needle on every time you need a bead. It would take you about 100 times as long. The other trick about using embroidery floss is that there's 6 strands of it together, so you have to get all those strands through at once. So put your beading needle on. So I'm going to pick up 10 green beads, since this is a purple. 10 green beads. 1, 10. Okay, so once you get your beads onto your needle, you need to pull it down onto the thread and onto your thread. So you're going to do that for all of your threads. So you have 8 of them. Now, what I usually do, I don't really know what the official sort of procedure is to do, but I usually, now the eye of your beading needle is kind of thin. It's hard to get your string back through, so I usually take just a regular needle, stick it through there, and kind of open up that eye, open it back up, and then if I need it a little bit wider, I'll take something like the scissors and stick the tip of the scissors in there, because now it's wide enough for the scissors to get into there, or sometimes a crochet needle or something, and then that opens up the eye so I can get my next string through. You got all your beads, your greens and your purples, and so now the tricky part begins. We're going to start doing the beading. So you'll notice that I have the purple, dark purple line here, so the next line is going to be the light purple, and for that we're not going to use the beads that are on the purples. We're only going to use the purples, only the middle 4 strands of beads. So you can slide the beads down if you need to. On the first 2, we're going to just start again with our knotting, and it's a little tricky to pull it over when you have the beads on there, but not really so hard. So there's 1, 2, there's 1 forward knot, okay, and then set that one aside. So now that was the working yarn and the first string. Now for this first green one, we're going to slide a bead up. So slide the bead up and then make your knot. Okay, and you're going to knot it sort of carefully and then knot it again. The one thing that you don't want to do here, and trust me, I've done it, is you don't want to knot too hard. It feels like you want to knot it in really tight to get that bead to sit in there, but it ends up throwing off the spacing of your beads. So next yarn, you're going to slide a bead up and go over, up, and over, and up. Okay, so now this is our last green string. It'll be the last string on which we're going to use a bead. So we're going to slide a bead up. So now for the last 2, the purples, we're just going to do regular forward knots without the beads. 1, 2, And 1, 2. Okay, so now this is when it gets really important to kind of pull all your strings down and straighten everything out. Okay, let me move this down a little bit so you can see better. You can see the beads are sitting in there. Just pull down a little bit, and you really do have to kind of wiggle around your strings and stuff to make sure that your beads kind of sit properly. This next purple, we're just going to do straight knots all the way across because we're done with the beading for that section. The next time we'll be sliding beads up will be in between the dark green and the light green. So now we're in between the greens because the next knots are going to be the light greens. So it's time to do the green beads. To start, you start the edge just with some regular knots with the working string and the first green string. Now we're in the middle on the 4, so we're going to take the first purple string and slide up a green bead and knot it over once. Got your next line of beads. So again, you want to kind of pull down to get those beads. See, they're not quite sitting evenly right now, but as you start adding more and pulling on it, it'll get them to sit kind of evenly. There, that's a little better. So now you just continue knotting. Okay, so now I finished braiding. You can see I've got the whole bracelet here. I've measured it around my wrist to make sure that it's just about matching up. So now what we're going to do is attach the button. So this is a little tricky. I'm going to take a beading needle. So what we're going to do is take our button. We're going to attach it here by dividing these strings into their color groups. So 4 groups of 2 strings. Okay, and we're going to put each one of those through one of the holes in the button. Now we've got all of our strings through the button. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to swap the dark green and the light green and the dark purple and the light purple, sending them back through the button. So you want to have it nice and tightened up onto the end of your knots. And then we're going to take our needle again, and then we're going to send the dark purples through the light purples hole so that they're coming back out the back. So kind of like sewing a button on, just with, and kind of tighten it up so that it's right up against the knots. So do that one. And then take the light purples through the dark purple hole. Okay. And like you're sewing a button. Okay, so then there's the purples, and we'll do the same thing with the greens. Okay, so now we got all the strings through, the greens and the purples. So to finish off, just take your strings and knot them as you did sort of in the beginning, but pull it all the way through, and pull this knot down as far as you can, as close to the last rows as you can. Tighten it up, and then you can just trim those off, and then you have your bracelet that will hook like that. So there we go. I got the button clasped, and I have my fabulous adult grown-up version friendship bracelet. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.